In the last video, we left off with the financial projections of our solution. In this video, we're going to be talking about how to actually monetize this solution to make money. In other words, how do we actually get clients? So if you haven't seen the previous two videos, with the first one being about the problem, the second one being about the solution, this video is not going to make sense. I'll leave the links down in the description below, so please check out the previous two videos first before you watch this one. Without further ado, let's jump straight into it. So as mentioned before, the big question we're going to be answering today is how do we actually monetize a solution, right? We found the problem, we came up with a solution, we now want to monetize it. In other words, how do we get clients, right? This is all about client acquisition. So first and foremost, we need to understand what client acquisition is before we can even talk about how to actually, guess what, acquire these clients. So people actually struggle with client acquisition the most that I've personally seen and witnessed. But this is actually not necessarily the case. Most people believe that it's the hardest piece of the puzzle, and the puzzle being creating a business. They believe that client acquisition is the hardest part of business. But that is only because they missed up the foundational steps, right? What we discussed in the previous two videos. So number one, utilizing our unique advantage, right? Understanding our resources, what resources we have, to be able to use them appropriately. Using these resources to find a problem, we vet the problem to make sure it's a good one, right? It has decent enough pain points to justify a proper solution for and justify that people will pay a lot of money for. And last but not least, use all of that to create a solution tailored specifically for our ICP, right, our ideal customer profile. So if we didn't do any of this research, right, if we didn't utilize our unique advantage, if we didn't vet the problem first and foremost, and if we just jumped into a solution, of course, client acquisition would be hard. Because guess what? We didn't make anything for the client. The people we're literally trying to help and also acquire. So how do we actually approach this then? Well, there's actually only two ways for us to get clients. Assuming we did everything by the book, as I said in the previous two videos, there's going to be only two ways for you to now acquire clients. One of which is inbound marketing. The second one is outbound marketing. So let's jump straight into understanding what each of these things are. In the simplest terms that I can describe outbound marketing, it's essentially you seeking out your customers. So I'm sure many of you have probably gotten emails or cold calls or even text messages from a business asking you to purchase from them. That would be an example of outbound marketing. So the business is reaching out to you. The business is seeking you. And you probably already guessed this, but inbound marketing is the opposite, right? It's when the customer seeks you out, you being the business in this case. So this would be an example of, let's say you guys watch this video and then decide to book a call with me, right? That would be inbound marketing. And I want you to understand that by nature, inbound marketing takes the longest time to set up and get going with. And it's also the hardest one probably to get right. The reason being is, you might have already, thought of this yourself, but it's probably the best form of marketing, right? Because it's essentially you get warm leads. And if you don't understand what warm leads are, whatever the case, stick with me. You'll understand it by the end of this video, I guarantee it. But already by nature, inbound marketing is the best type of marketing that you can possibly do, right? You're going to get the highest quality people approaching you. You're going to get the best customers you're going to be working with, and so on and so forth. But because it's the best one, it's going to take the longest time to set up and get going with. So for now, a large part of this video is going to be focused on outbound marketing, because for many businesses, especially when they're first starting off, their main revenue will be driven from outbound marketing. So we'll touch upon outbound a lot in this video, and then at the very end, we'll dive into inbound just a tad little bit. So let's get to know outbound marketing, right? In essence, outbound marketing can be broken down further into three specific acquisition methods. So one is you reach out to people you know, which is considered a warm audience, right? The second is you reach out to people you don't know, which is considered a cold audience. And of course, third one is running paid ads. So I want you to understand that the way I listed this, number 1, 2, and 3, this is actually in chronological order of how you would approach outbound marketing. The first people you would actually try to reach out to are those that you know. So the warm audience, people that you might know on a first name basis, people that aren't strangers to you. You can easily just pick up the phone, call them, talk with them, and ask whether they want to be your client or they know somebody else that might be your client, right? The second would be reaching out to people you don't know. So this would be complete strangers, but still somebody part of your ICP, your ideal customer profile. And of course, last but not least, you would run paid ads. And this is the last thing you would do, right? As we talked about this in chronological order, because this will also be the least effective if you haven't done the first two properly. Main reason being, I generally recommend that if anybody ever wants to get into paid ads and they're a complete beginner, they should only do so once they're making about $10,000 to $15,000 a month with their offer. And in some cases, possibly even more. So for the sake of this video, we're not going to touch upon paid ads too much, because once again, it's not for beginners. Let's move on. So my favorite way of kind of explaining outreach and trying to describe it to a person, especially somebody who wants to get into business and they might think business is too confusing, land acquisition is too hard, is to show them the hierarchy of outreach. So this is essentially what I myself made and this is what I use. And this, as you can see, it's a hierarchical pyramid. And at the very top, we have in person, and at the bottom, we have mass communication. So looking at this at first glance might be a bit confusing, but let me explain. Essentially, there's a lot of different ways you can outreach, right? There's a lot of different ways you can communicate with people. You can communicate with people in person, you can call somebody, you can text somebody, right? And so on and so forth. And these methods of communication, well, one is better than the other. Hence why we have the hierarchy here. So the number one place at the hierarchy at the very top is in person. So in-person communication is the best possible form of outreach that you can possibly do. Nothing beats in person. And then from in person, you go down to live remote communication. So this could be you on a phone call, this could be you on a video call with your customer, right? Whatever the case. The third one would be personalized digital outreach. So this would be, let's say, drafting up a very specific personalized cold email to somebody. And last but not least, it would be mass communication. So this could be potentially paid ads or just mass cold email campaigns that are relatively generalized, right? But this is essentially the hierarchy of how outreach would work. At the very top, you have the most personal, you have the best form of outreach, but at the very top, it's very limited because you can only approach so many people, right, in person. And somebody that's far away from you, you won't be able to do so. And at the very bottom, you have mass communication. You can reach out to a lot of people, but the quality of your outreach wouldn't necessarily be as good as it would be in person, right? So I want you to kind of memorize this and etch this into your brain because we're going to be using this a lot in the following few slides. So inbound marketing is much simpler in nature than outbound marketing. And the reason I say that is because it's really only composed of two things: organic content and referrals, right? So the only way that customers will seek you out is if somebody refers them to you or if they see some type of content that you have posted and they come to you through content, right? So with all that in mind, now that we learned about inbound, we learned about outbound, we learned about the hierarchy of outreach, all that into place, how do we actually reach out to the farmer market vendors for them to buy our solution? Well, let's get into that. And once again, I want you to remember the hierarchy of outreach because we're going to be using this a lot. I'm going to reference this a lot in terms of how we're going to actually acquire these clients. So just keep this in mind. So first and foremost, we're going to utilize our unique advantage. So this is primarily our network alongside our physical location to communicate with our ideal customers in person. Hence the hierarchy of outreach, right? The first thing we're going to try is in person, and we're going to leverage our physical location alongside our network to find these people and talk with them and pitch them our offer, right? Now, if we can't communicate with these people in person, right, then we will do so remotely. So let's say you still have somebody in your network, but let's say they're another state over or they're very far away from you, you can meet them in person, you would do so remotely. Voice message, give them a quick call, hopping on a video call, whatever the case, right? This is how you would approach them. So we go back to live remote communication with this one. And then after that, if you run out of people in your own network and you run out of everybody in your physical location and you run out of people even in the network of your own networks, right? So your friends, then and only then would you consider using personalized outreach to target your ideal customer profile. And this is how that would go. So in order for you to find ideal clients for outbound, there's a few things that you would have to do. And once again, this is only assuming that we ran out of people from our own network and our physical location that we can't go to in person and talk. To then, we need to start looking for places where farmer market vendors' contact information will be. Now, of course, for you, this will be different. Since this is primarily dedicated to the farmer market vendor solution that we made in the series, this is what I'm going to be going with. But the process is still going to be the same. So I want you to pay careful attention here. So what we'll do is, based on our ideal customer profile that we actually research, I found out that there's a lot of them in Facebook groups, other online communities. A lot of data broker sites actually have these farmer market vendors actually in their database. And of course, local farmer market sites, I found them on there as well. So specifically, there's one in LA, so farmermarketsla.com. I can go on a merchant and actually look for these vendors myself. And of course, there's a plethora of other ways that if we really tend to look at our ICP and really understand them, we can find out this information naturally, right? I'm not even mentioning Apollo or LinkedIn or all that other tools that you can possibly use for this. Now, once we actually find their information and their preferred method of receiving information, Remember, if you know your ideal customers well enough, you'll understand what they use, what they don't use, what they prefer to be messaged on, what they don't prefer to be messaged on, right? For example, a lot of people might prefer email, but if you reach out to them over, let's say, LinkedIn, nobody's going to take a look at it, right? So you should understand who your customer is and where they prefer to receive any communication on. And once we actually find that, in this case, let's assume it's going to be email, we'll then pitch them our offer. And whenever we pitch it, so whether it's an email, a text, or a call, we need to have four things in our specific pitch. So, number one, it needs to be personalized to them. Number two, we need to remind them of the problem. And notice how I said remind of the problem, now create. I'll get into this in like 10 seconds. Number three, we need to actually give them a solution to that problem. And last but not least, we need to offer a risk reversal. So I put a reminder of a problem here, not creation of a problem, is because oftentimes, and this is for those of you that want to pitch me something, I'll get a lot of emails, be it for YouTube, be it for my own business, people trying to, promote stuff, their own services. And they'll send me emails like, oh, hey, your website sucks, or hey, your services suck, or hey, your thumbnails suck, or hey, your videos suck. That's creating a problem for me. I don't want to hear anything with regards to that. You can point that out in a much better, efficient, clean, professional way rather than going up to somebody and telling them, hey, what you're doing is bad, don't do it, it sucks, right? All that does is create a new problem for them. It puts people in a defensive. That's not to say what you're saying isn't true. It could very well be true. But once again, you put people on the defensive and they already start to dislike you. And if somebody dislikes you, you can never get them to trust you and give you money, right? So with that, we don't want to create a problem. We want to remind them of their problem. And one of the best ways you can do this is instead of actually saying, hey, your work sucks or your product sucks or your service sucks, you say the opposite. Hey, I love your service, but I feel like since your service is so good, I think you're underperforming a little bit. And with just a little bit of help, you can be operating here. So now what you did is remind them that they're here, they could be operating here, and this gap is their problem. And of course, you offer the solution to bridge that gap. And last but not least, you offer risk reversal. So let's actually take a look and see what this looks like in real life. So in my case, I found this actual grocery vendor at a farmer market near me, and it was Farm Boy Produce. So I see it was a young guy, right? He's part of my ICP, let's assume, right? I see a young guy, he has groceries, he has organic fruits and vegetables, let's say something that I like to purchase, and my goal is to reach out to this person. Now, in this specific case, I can already tell from the name, Farm Boy Produce, and I can see from the kid, right? This guy's a young dude, right? He's young. So I can't make too professional of an email because even in his name, he has Farm Boy Produce, not Farm Man Produce, not Farm Gentleman Produce. He has Farm Boy Produce, right? It's already kind of informal. In a language, you can say there's a lot more friendlier tone involved. And you can look at that happy smile on his face as well, right? He's a very approachable character. When you see him in person, he's very trustworthy, he's very approachable, not mean. So in this case, I would have a very friendly and kind of like we've known each other for a long time type of approach. So let me show you what that looks like. But you see what I did there? That entire analysis, a lot of business, all it really is just research and psychology. You understanding who your customer is and understanding the best way to reach out to them. So let's take a look at possible email outreaches that I can do to him to pitch my solution for my vendor market. So in this case, let me actually move my camera over here so you can see it. So in this case, I have two mock email examples. And the reason I have two mock email examples is just to show you the variation that you can have and also for it to be sort of like an A/B test to see which one works better. Now, keep in mind that for this specific person, I decided to use this type of language. And once again, if his name wasn't Farm Boy Produce and he wasn't a young kid, right, I wouldn't have done this, right? But since I understood who my ICP is, right, and in this case, I found out who my customer is, I decided to tailor my language to him specifically. And let me just read you one of the emails that I will send out. So for the subject, it would be, does watermelons deserve their own POS, right? Now, keep in mind, I did all of this in like pretty much like an hour, like even less than an hour. So if I had a little bit more time to think this through, I would have probably changed the subject line a tad bit. I personally don't like the subject line too much, but nevertheless, I think the email is still good enough to actually pass. So let's talk about that. In this case, I say, yo, Farm Boy, right? Because Farm Boy Produce, and I don't get his name, I just say, yo, Farm Boy, kind of like a playful, interactive, like I'm friendly and we've known each other for a while. And I say, just swung by your stand at the market. And I gotta say, I love it. Those watermelons were unreal. Easily the juiciest I've ever had. Your setup's legit too. Definitely gonna come back for round two. So in this case, I'm using very informal language, talking to him like I've known him for a while. And I'm talking to him like I'm from the same place that he was, right? Like I grew up with him, or I'm speaking his same language in this case, right? He might think, do I know this person? Why is he acting so friendly with me? And then I say, anyways, I was thinking, what if we made things even smoother for you and your customers? And imagine this quick card taps, no more, do you have change for $20 moments? Fast lines, customers grab their melons and go, which means more sales for you. Easy sales tracking, know exactly how many watermelons flew off the table each day without the guesswork. And then I say, I've got a POS system I've been helping vendors like you set up. Super simple, doesn't need Wi Fi, and is perfect for farmer markets. So, if you remember back in our ICP research, we found out that there's going to be a lot of times where these people don't have Wi Fi and they need offline services. And here I kind of hint at it. Super simple, doesn't need Wi Fi, and is perfect for farmer markets. I even recorded a quick Loom to show you how it works. And I would insert a Loom video here, possibly a quick demo or just showing more of my personality to build that trustworthiness as well as a risk reversal, and would love to help you test it out, see how it could work for your stand. Let me know if you're free for a quick chat this week. Now, let's see what happened in this email. First and foremost, I did a very personalized line with the subject line alongside our actual intro, right? So I showed that, hey, I actually went to your stand, I bought the watermelon, it was amazing, and I'm going to come back for more. Now, he could easily tell if this is generic or not. Like, if somebody reads this, they will know, okay, somebody actually came to my stand. Like, this person that's sending me this message actually came to my stand. Now, had I actually gone to the stand, I could have easily put something in the sentence that nobody else could emulate. Let's say if I saw he was wearing a special shirt that day, or if I saw, let's say, there was some cool prop hanging from his stand, from his store, right? And I brought that up in this message. The key point here is to personalize it as much as I can to Farm Boy in this specific case, for him to understand that I actually spend time in understanding him and also spend time in pitching whatever I'm pitching, because once again, he feels special, right? I made it specifically tailored for him. And I give him a compliment first and foremost. Right off the bat, I give him a compliment. It disarms him. Next thing, anyway, I was thinking, what if we made things even smoother for you and your customers? So I don't only talk about him here, I also talk about his customers, right? So I remind him of the pain that he has. It's not only about himself anymore, but it's also about his customers. And I bring up, do you have change for $20, right? So he'll probably think back, be like, oh yeah, I had that. Let's say I had this case happen to me. That's a pain point that I'm reminding him of. I'm not creating it, I'm just reminding him of it, right? And I talk about the fast lines, the easy sales tracking, and then I list that, hey, I've got a solution for you. I've actually been helping vendors like you set up extremely super simple, doesn't need Wi-Fi, and is perfect for farmers markets. I even made a quick Loom to show you how it works. You can put the Loom video there, maybe talk about specific numbers, specific testimonials, give a quick demo, whatever the case, right? In this case, whatever I see would be best fit for my customer. Last but not least, I live out with a CTA. Let me know if you're free for a quick chat this week. Nothing too crazy. Second email, very similar. Yo, your watermelons are legendary. The subject line on this one is better in my opinion. And I say, what up, farm boy? Swung by your stand at the farmer's market today. And man, y'all have the best looking produce out there. Those watermelons, unreal. Makes people want to skip the grocery store forever. Anyways, I'm reaching out because I think I can help you sell even more of those incredible watermelons and everything else by using our POS system. Here's what it could do for you. Speed up checkout so no one's stuck waiting for change. Once again, remind them of the pain. Accept cards, Apple Pay, whatever makes life easier for your customers. Once again, it's not only about them, it's also about their customers. Keep track of your watermelon sales so you know how fast they're flying off the shelves. And once again, in both of these cases, I'm personalizing it to the watermelon specifically, right, for his produce. So he knows I actually went there, I bought it, I loved it, hence why I'm using it so much. And I say I put together a quick Loom, breaking it all down and showing how it could work perfectly for your stand, and then insert the Loom link. And then at the end, I have, and if you're curious, I helped another vendor streamline their sales and double their revenue in just a couple of months using our POS system. Would love to help you do the same. And if the vendor is cool with it, I would even put their name here and such that they can go and actually check the specific vendor I'm talking about. Once again, hit me up if you're down to chat about this. Let me know when it works for you. A very informal, casual, friendly tone, because once again, we're talking about a young kid from that actual vendor, right? And keeping it very calm, cool, collected, just a quick outreach, complimenting, personalizing it, reminding them of the pain, giving a solution, backing it up with a testimony or some other risk reversal, and then a CTA at the very end. And this is exactly how outreach should be, right? And let me tell you, I did this in an hour. If I had a lot more time, I would go even further and beyond, right? One of the best things that you can actually do, especially if you have the cultural advantage, for example, if somebody did enough research on me, like this is also true for all of you guys watching, if you're gonna pitch me something, please listen to this. I get about, for my business and also from YouTube, I would about say like about 80 emails a day pitching me some type of service, what be it B2B or B2C, right? And a lot of times I can instantly tell if something is just mass cold outreach or something has been personalized. Now, when something has been personalized, I can tell. So I'll open it, I'll take a look at it. If the offer is good enough, I might consider it. If not, I'm not even going to touch it. However, every now and then I'll have people who go out of their way. They'll look me up, they'll go to my website, they'll see where I'm from, they'll tailor the hello in my native language, right? And they'll send it to me. Guess how I'm gonna feel when I see that message in my inbox? It's instantly gonna jump out at me. Who the heck is writing to me in Armenian, right? What are they pitching me? And then I open the actual email and I see, wow, somebody's really looked into me, seen what I've done, where I've gone. They've spent at least 10 to 15 minutes at the bare minimum, at least trying to understand me for them to write this email. So this email at least took them about 30 minutes for one email, right? And based on that, there's a very high chance if the offer is good enough for that person, I will 100% of the time take them up on that offer, right? So keep that in mind. You can take this personalization level to the next level. If you truly understand your customer, once again, everything's about understanding your customer. Before, just like I mentioned in the previous videos, before you even talk about a solution, before you even think about it, you need to understand who your customer is, right? The better you understand them, everything becomes so much easier if you understand your customers. Now let's move on to inbound. So how do we find ideal clients for our inbound? Well, it's a little different now. And in this case, we'll now have a much better understanding of our ICP because we probably worked with people, right, from our outbound. We have a little bit of revenue to play with. And now we'll know where they spend most of their time. So YouTube, Instagram, LinkedIn, whatever the case. So we'll actually create content tailored to our ICP based on what they use the most, be it YouTube, Instagram, whatever. And if they use multiple, if they use, let's say, for example, YouTube and Instagram, we'll start with one and branch out slowly as time goes on. And what I'll do is I can actually make content on any of the platforms about, let's see, how POS systems will help simplify vendor operations, tips for increasing sales at farmer market vendors using technology, right? Case studies of successful farmer market vendors using our POS systems, common payment challenges and how to overcome them, top features to look for in a mobile POS system, how to set up a POS system for their small business, comparison of cash only versus digital payments for market vendors, real life stories, whatever the case. You understand where I'm going with this. A lot of helpful content that will be extremely useful to these type of farmer market vendors. And they would find these videos, they would watch them, they would gain value from it, and over time they would warm up and become clients because my offer is actually good for it, right? And I understand who my customer is. I know exactly what type of content I can make for them. And this is the key part here. The reason we did outbound first before we got into inbound is because when we have outbound, we'll have a better understanding of who our customers are, right? We'll have a better understanding of their pain points. And also we'll have testimonials now. We'll have people we have helped that we can actually use for our inbound content. And with that, let's move on to our financial projections, right? So in the last video, we ended with this specific financial projections of making $573,000 a year with extremely bad, essentially like a very conservative estimate of how much these businesses would make a month. But still, let's just take this into consideration and let's see how many clients or how many people we should be reaching out to hit these numbers. So let's take a look at the outreach projections. But before we do so, we have to understand three essentially phrases here. So let's kind of have like a dictionary for them. Let's define our terms. First off, we'll be discussing leads. Now, lead is any individual or business, B2C versus B2B, that has been identified as a potential customer based on our ideal customer profile. Then we have an interested customer. An interested customer is a lead who has shown some level of engagement or interest in your offer. So maybe they replied back to you, maybe they said okay to your offer, maybe they booked a call, whatever the case. That would be an interested customer. And last but not least, we have a paying customer. So somebody who has committed to purchasing your product or service. Now, let's take a look at some example conversion rates that we can actually expect from this type of business. So let's take a look at the conversion rate from lead to interested customer. And in this case, I'm going to assume it's 10%. And this is very realistic based on how much research we actually have done for our ICP. So based on how well we know our ideal customer profile, then we can understand that from a lead to an interested customer, if our offer is good enough, if we know our customer good enough, if we understand their pain point, if we offer a proper solution with a proper guarantee and / risk aversal, and we personalize everything, right, our entire outreach for them, then I would say 10% is a good conversion rate from lead to interested customer. Keep in mind, interested customer doesn't mean they purchased. It just means they said okay or they'll want to hear more about it, right? They didn't shoot you down. Only 10%, 1 out of 10. And consider that a lead is already somebody who could be a potential customer, right? Next up, from interested customer to paying customer. I'm going to say it's about 20% because in this case, this is very realistic, especially for a high quality sales process. So in my specific business, our interested customer to paying customer is actually over 60% because we understand our ideal customer profile so well, right? Because we understand, everything about them. We know what they like, what they dislike, what they value, what they don't value. We understand them so well that we have a very high paying customer, interested customer to paying customer ratio. And this would mean that our overall lead to customer conversion rate would be about 2%. Now, based on a business, this is extremely high. For other businesses, they could be extremely low. For other businesses, it will be normal, right? Really depends on the type of business you have, but it really depends on how well of research you did on your ideal customer profile, right? If the leads you're reaching out to are extremely bad leads, this is going to be sub 1%, probably 0.03, 0.05, right? But if your leads are actually good and you properly vetted them, you understand who your customer is, then this would be much higher, right? Once again, really depends. But in this case, we're assuming that you actually paid attention to the previous two videos and did your due diligence. So with that out of the way, let's take a look and see how many leads we actually need, right? How many people we need to reach out to make the numbers we want to make in the previous slide. So since we're going to have 100 people for our pro plan, that means that if we're taking interested customer to paying customer, we need 500 interested customer, right? Because if one out of every five actually went from interested to paying, and if you have 100 paying, that means we had 500 interested. If we had 500 interested, that means that we had 5,000 leads, right? Because 1 out of 10 lead went to interested customers. So we have 5,000 leads for our pro plan. For the basic, well, we have 200, so we can just double it, right? 10,000 leads. So in total, we have about 15,000 leads that we need to reach out to close 300 people. 100 for pro, 200 for basic, right? In this case, to make that 500 something thousand dollars that we set out to make in the financial projections. So we only need to reach out to 15,000 leads. So 15,000 people who have been identified as a potential customer based on our ideal customer profile. Let's do the math on that. If we divide it by 365 days, that's only 41 leads per day. We only have to reach out to 41 leads per day to make over $500,000 a year in revenue. Now, keep in mind, guys, that the financial projections we did on this slide, this was an extremely conservative metric, okay? This was so conservative you don't understand. Like, no business is doing 2,924, especially if they're a farmer market vendor. Like, they could be doing this in probably a day or two, right? In reality, this number would be about 20 to 30,000, so 10 times more than this, right? So keep that in mind. This would be a huge number. In reality, if you actually reached out to 15,000 leads, right, in a year, so if you reached out to, let's say, 41 leads in a year, and we're assuming these were ideal customers, you'll make a lot more than $500,000. Now, most people, they have the exact opposite problem. They reach out to like hundreds, if not thousands of people per day, right? But they don't make nearly as much money, and they blame and say outreach doesn't work. No, that's simply because you don't understand who your ideal customer is, right? They do a Hail Mary. They don't have a proper understanding of who their ideal customer is, hence why their conversion rates are so low. But if they had a proper idea of who their ideal customers were, they would have a much higher conversion rate. And once again, in reality, to be completely honest with you, for beginners, they should aim for at least 100 leads per day, reaching out to 100 leads per day, because most likely than not, at the very initial stage, you probably won't hit the nail on the head with regards to your ideal customer profile is. You'll need a few people to work with, see who you like, who you don't like, what they have, what they don't have, what they value, what they don't value, for you to actually understand who your ICP is. But even then, if you actually do your due diligence, spend a few weeks on understanding who your customer profile is, 50 to 100 leads a day is all you need to actually make more money than you could ever possibly think of making. And with that, I hope that was helpful. And yes, if it looks simple, it's because it really is simple, right? Entrepreneurship is very simple. It's not easy, but it's simple, right? And that's all really is to it. It's just systemized process. If you do each step properly with due diligence, it's going to be very simple for you. Of course, it's not going to be easy because it's a lot of work, but it's definitely going to be worth it. So with that, I hope you really enjoyed this series, the 3-part series we did with the problem, the solution, and now the monetization. And I hope you learned something from this. As always, make sure to like and subscribe for more content. And please leave any comments below if you had any questions about anything specific, and so on. With that, as always, thank you for watching and have a good one.